Good afternoon. I'm Jessica Warren. I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent and County Extension Coordinator in Camden County. And the topic we'll be talking about today is native plants and low maintenance landscapes. This presentation is part of the Georgia Green Landscape Program series. This presentation is part of the University of Georgia Extension Services Georgia Green Landscapes Program, funded by the Center for Urban Agriculture. These guidance series will help Georgia residents create certified, sustainable Georgia landscapes, protecting our natural resources for future generations. So the first thing we'll talk about is what makes a landscape low maintenance. There's a number of things that go into this. Minimal labor expended. This could be labor pulling weeds or applying inputs like fertilizer or herbicide. Low to no inputs. So once you have a native low maintenance landscape established, it shouldn't need much. Once it gets established, it shouldn't require regular irrigation. It shouldn't require fertilizer or pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, any of that, or store-bought amendments or mulch. Another key to a low maintenance landscape is that the plants thrive easily. And as I mentioned, little to no irrigation is needed. So how do we create a low maintenance landscape? So there's a few different principles here. The most important one possibly is to plant native plants. So native plants are going to be better adapted to your area and to your climate, your soil types and soil conditions, the type of water that you have and the minerals that are naturally occurring in that, the height of the water table and drainage issues. They're also going to be better adapted to provide for your local native pollinators and wildlife. Another concept, and we'll go deeper into all of these throughout the presentation, but is natural mulch and ground cover, establishing strong roots, and putting the right plant in the right place. So this is something we talk about a lot in extension, making sure you put the right plant in the right place, giving it the tools to succeed more or less. So each plant has different things it needs. It may need full sun, it may need partial shade, it may need full shade. It may have different soil moisture or drainage requirements. It may like wet soil, it may like dry soil or moist soil. Spacing. It's really important to plant your plants for what they will become when they're mature and fully grown, instead of the size that you buy them at. So spacing them appropriately for what size they will be when they're fully grown. And then also heat tolerance. This is something to always consider in Georgia. As you know, as a southern state, we have a warmer climate. So our first thing we're going to talk about is planting native, and this is what we're going to spend the majority of the talk discussing. Native plants preserve the natural ecosystem. They provide wildlife and pollinator habitat, and they also provide the best nutrition to our pollinators and wildlife. So while pollinators may be able to utilize some non-native species for things like nectar and pollen, there's research showing that those pollen and nectar sources are not as nutrient dense. And also a lot of our pollinators require very specific native plants in order to complete their life cycles, both for themselves, but also to provide food for things like songbirds and other wildlife in the ecosystem. So native plants are going to be the best adapted for the predators, insects, diseases, and pests in your area. They're also going to be the best adapted to your climate and to your soils and drainage. In Georgia, there are more than 100 distinct environments and plant communities, and those plants are growing where they do because they have finely adjusted to local environments. As such, you know, since these are things that would grow naturally out in nature without human help, they're not going to require fertilizer or herbicides or insecticides to try and survive. These are things that you don't have to baby in your landscape. Also, many native pollinators and beneficial insects and wildlife can only feed and or complete their life cycles on native plants that they have evolved with over time. So we're learning more and more about this. There's a lot of work out by Doug Tallamy, and he's starting to get a large following in regards to his work on this very topic. We're finding more that a lot of our native insects that are the base of the food chain, especially in their larval form, like as caterpillars that songbirds and other animals are feeding on, can only develop on specific native plants that over time they have evolved with. And that's because each plant species or family has different defense tactics that they use in order to keep everything from eating it. So those caterpillars basically and other insects basically had to evolve strategies to be able to disable the defense system or to tolerate the toxin of the defense system of certain plants. They couldn't do that for every type of plant. They had to specialize in order to survive. So it's very important that we have native plants in our landscape in order to support that food web and food chain that then provides our pollinators, our beneficial insects, the beneficial predatory insects too, that eat the things that are damaging in our garden, and also our wildlife, whether it's songbirds or lizards or frogs or snakes or small mammals, a number of different things that all interacts together. So first we'll go over a few species of native perennials. This presentation is focusing statewide, so all of these things should be native in most of the state, but of course look into them a little bit more if you're looking at putting them in your landscape, and make sure your specific area is appropriate. With each of them, we'll talk a little bit about the culture that they like, meaning what type of habitat they're looking for and what their characteristics are. Also keep in mind that even if a plant is native throughout the state, that you'll be better off if you can find a source closer to you, because there are also what we call ecotypes. So say, if you have echinacea, purple cone flower, and I mean, it's native across the state, but the different ecotypes or the different advantages that have evolved over time are going to be different if you're in coastal Georgia than they will be if you're in the North Georgia mountains. All right, so our first species is wide-leaf blue star, also known as eastern blue star. This is a compact clump-forming plant with narrow, lustrous green leaves that radiate around the stem. The leaves turn yellow-gold in the fall, and from spring to early summer, blue star-shaped flowers about a ½ inch across are borne on loose clusters at stem tips. So this plant likes well-drained soil and full sun to partial shade. Cut back the plants after flowering to encourage compact growth. And it's a deer resistant. We won't say anything's deer proof because it depends on how hungry you are. I always tell people that the things that say that they're deer resistant doesn't mean a deer can't eat it. It's just if it has another choice, it won't. But deer do not like the milky sap of this plant. It gets about 2 to 3 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide, and its habitat is rich hardwood forest, floodplains, and stream banks. Eastern columbine. This is an erect branching plant. The leaves have 3 round lobes. It has delicate red and yellow bell-like nodding flowers with spurred petals that are produced on branch terminals in early spring and remain for about 6 weeks. This is a plant that likes full sun to partial shade. It likes slightly alkaline, well-drained soils. It pruned after flowering to discourage reseeding and to reduce leaf miner problems. Columbine usually gets 2 to 3 feet tall and 1 to 1.5 feet wide. And its habitat is calcareous or mafic woods and nutrient-rich rocky slopes. Butterfly weed or butterfly milkweed. This is one of our native milkweeds. The one that's kind of our best all-purpose milkweed. It's not too environment specific and it's native throughout the state. This is a bushy plant with several flowering branches emerging from a single crown. The leaves are alternate, lance-shaped, 1.5 to 2.25 inches long with pointed ends and smooth margins. Stems are hairy and sap is clear. In late spring through summer, many small bright orange flowers are born in clusters 2 to 5 inches across on stem terminals. Seeds are born in spindle-shaped pods that are 3 to 6 inches long. It likes full sun and well-drained soil. You can remove aphid infestations with a stream of water. Sometimes I have found it's very interesting. Sometimes aphids attack this plant, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they pick a specific milkweed in the landscape. You can have several and they just attack one of the plants. But you can remove them with a stream of water. If you're wanting something else to treat with, you could use insecticidal soap. I would never recommend anything systemic as we're trying to encourage pollinators. And any systemic insecticide is going to get transferred in the nectar or pollen. The butterfly milkweed gets about 1 to 2 feet high and 1 to 2 feet wide. It generally likes dry open woods, fields, and roadsides is where you might find it. Blue wild indigo. This is a bushy upright plant with clover-like leaves having 3 bluish green leaflets up to 2 inches long. It has a purple pea-like bloom that appear in spring and dense terminal racemes 4 to 16 inches long above the foliage. It likes full sun to partial shade and slightly moist to dry soil. Cutting back plants after flowering promotes more compact growth and prevents self-seeding. This guy gets 3 to 4 inches tall and about 3 to 4 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. Its habitat is riverbanks, gravel bars, and open meadows. Our next species is green and gold. This is a low-growing semi-evergreen ground cover. The leaves are oval, toothed, and hairy, and up to 3 inches long. In May, bright yellow star-shaped flowers 1.5 inches across arise from upper leaf axils. Each flower head has 5 yellow, rounded, notched ray petals surrounding a central disc of tiny yellow flowers. Profuse spring bloom followed by sparse flowering through October. Green and gold prefers sun to partial shade and moist, well-drained soil high in organic matter. It's 6 to 9 inches tall and can get 15 to 18 inches wide. The habitat is moist woodlands. Large flowered coreopsis. This has dark green lance-shaped leaflets up to 4 inches long and 1 inch wide, which are borne on wiry stems. From mid-June to October, daisy-like yellow flower heads 2 to 3 inches across are borne on long terminal stalks. Ray flowers with notched tips surround a central disc of tiny golden flowers. It tolerates intense heat and dry sites, prefers full sun to partial shade and well-drained soil. Cut back when frost damages foliage. It gets 6 to 12 inches tall and 6 to 12 inches wide. Its habitat is dry sandy soil, open rocky upland forest, granite flat rocks. Purple coneflower. This is also known as echinacea. It has leaves that are dark green, lance-shaped, alternate, hairy, and coarsely toothed along their margins. From late spring to early summer, flower heads 2 to 3 inches across are borne on stalks rising 2 to 4 feet. Ray flowers, pink, disc flowers, dark purple. It's easy to grow almost anywhere except in wetlands, prefers full sun to light shade. Powdery mildew may be a problem in moist, shady sites. Divide the clumps every 3 to 4 years. And the size is 2 to 4 feet tall and spreading. Habitat, dry to slightly moist areas and full sun or light shade. American boneset. Pairs of opposite lance-shaped, wrinkled light green leaves are joined directly to the stem. Leaves look as though stem has pierced through them. Stems are hairy. Flat-topped clusters of small white flower heads appear above foliage from August to September. Grows best in moist soil and sunny to partially shaded areas. Does well in both clay and sandy soils. Pinchback shoots periodically to encourage branching and a stockier plant. It grows 3 to 5 feet tall, and its habitat is marshes, swamps, open moist meadows, and ditches. Wild geranium, also known as cranesbill geranium. This is mottled medium green leaves up to 6 inches across, have finger-like lobes with toothed margins. Flowers emerge in spring on long stalks rising above leaves. Flowers are pink to lilac, 1 1/4 inch across and saucer shaped with 5 upward curving petals. It's easy to grow in average well-drained soil and full sun to partial shade. Moisture is essential, especially in early spring, and you can deadhead for a repeat bloom. This plant gets 12 to 24 inches tall and about 18 inches wide. Its habitat is rich, moist hardwood forest and shaded roadsides. Hepatica or liverleaf hepatica. The leaves are basal and heart-shaped with 3 lobes. Some may have speckled leaves while others have leaves that are maroon on their undersides. In March or April, numerous hairy flower stalks, 4 to 6 inches long, rise above foliage, each bearing a single saucer-shaped bloom composed of 5 to 7 petal-like sepals. Flower color ranges from blue to lavender, shades of pink, or white. Plant this plant in small drifts in shaded moist woodlands, stream banks, or shaded rock gardens. Prefers moist organic soils and partial shade. It grows 4 to 6 inches tall and wide. Its habitat is nutrient-rich hardwood forest. Coral bells, also known as alum root. This plant has a basal rosette of evergreen heart-shaped leaves. Each leaf is 3 to 5 inches wide and has 5 to 7 lobes. New leaves emerge purplish brown and then turn green. Leaf venation is silver or rose purple. A flowering stem emerges in early spring and rises 18 to 24 inches above the plant. Use in shaded areas of perennial borders, rock gardens, or woodlands. Plant in well-drained soil, high in organic matter. Prefers shade or partial shade, morning sun. Deadhead to encourage repeat blooms. This plant will grow 1 to 2.5 feet tall and 1 to 1.5 feet wide. Its habitat is drainage slopes of rich woods, dry woods, and rocky areas. So one of our more unique plants, we've got little brown jug, which is also known as evergreen wild ginger. This has shiny, thick, heart-shaped evergreen leaves, 3 to 6 inches long, which are borne at ground level. The leaves are dark green with pale splotches in spring and summer, and then they turn bronze in the winter. Reddish brown flowers appear in April and May at ground level. No petals and are actually composed of thick, fleshy, fused sepals shaped like little brown jugs, hence the name. Used in shaded woodland gardens. In a natural setting, only 2 or 3 leaves may be seen, but under cultivation, it forms large clumps of basal foliage. It's shade tolerant, but prefers partial shade. It will adapt to both moist and dry soils and gets about 3 to 6 inches tall. Normally, you would find this in mixed deciduous or pine forests. Spider lily or Carolina spider lily. We have some of this growing in front of our office. This has a basal clump of strap-shaped leaves up to 17 inches long that rise from a bulb. In summer, a flowering stalk up to 22 inches tall emerges from center of foliage and bears 3 to 6 white fragrant blossoms. Each flower is up to 7 inches across and has 6 segments and a center tubular cup. Use this in perennial borders, open woodland gardens, and along streams and ponds. It's best grown in moist to wet soils in full sun or partial shade. Allow the foliage to remain after flowering to feed the bulb and developing bulblets. This plant gets 1.5 to 2.5 feet tall and 1 to 1.5 feet wide. Its habitat is swamps, moist fields, bottomlands, rich and moist forest. Our next plant is dwarf crested iris. This is a low-growing spreading plant with narrow sword-shaped medium green leaves up to 6 inches long and 2 inches wide. The leaves arise from branching rhizomes that spread to form colonies. In spring, pale blue flowers with gold crest appear on short stalks. Sepals are distinctly marked with a central band of white, yellow, or purple. Under favorable growing conditions, the plant spreads and becomes a ground cover. Plant in sun to partial shade and moist soil enriched with organic matter. This plant grows 6 to 12 inches high and spreads. Its habitat is moist, fertile wooded slopes and floodplains. Virginia iris, or southern blue flag iris, has narrow sword-like leaves, 1 to 2 feet tall and 2 to 3 inches wide that grow from rhizomes. New leaves have a burgundy tinge at their bases that persist until early summer. Flowers are borne on stalks that rise 1 to 3 feet from the base of the plant in spring. Each stalk bears 1 to 3 flowers. Falls are violet blue and crests are yellow or white. Used along edges of streams or ponds, in drainage ditches, or in water gardens. Also does well in low-lying areas that are subject to flooding. It's a wetland species that likes consistent moisture. So this is a great plant for if you have a rain garden or a bioretention area in your landscape. It adapts to sun or partial shade, and it spreads slowly and is not aggressive. It gets 2 to 3 feet high. Its habitat is marshes, wet ditches, and swamps and open areas. Dense blazing star or marsh blazing star. This has basal leaves that are narrow, grass-like, and up to 8 inches long. Stem leaves are shorter than basal leaves and gradually decrease in size as they ascend the stem. Flower spikes 6 to 12 inches long appear in June. They consist of numerous round, deep purple flower heads about 3/4 of an inch across. Each flower head is comprised of 4 to 10 narrow tubular flowers with long, prominent branching styles. This plant likes sun or partial shade and moist to wet soil, and too much fertilizer can result in floppy stalks. So this isn't one that really needs fertilizer. It's used to poor soils. It gets 2 to 5 feet tall and is clump forming, and its habitat is wet meadows, mountain outcrops, and marsh margins. Cardinal flower, this is a hummingbird favorite. This has leaves that are alternate and lance-shaped with tooth margins, 6 inches long and 2 inches wide. Deep red flowers, about 1 inch long, are borne in racemes at the top of stems in late summer. Flowers are tubular and have 2 flaring lips. Stamens are united to form an erect tube that is topped with a small tuft of white hairs. Flowering begins in August and lasts about 3 weeks. It prefers morning sun and afternoon shade and moist, humus-enriched soils. It does not like wet sites. This plant grows 2 to 4 feet tall and 12 inches wide, and its habitat is moist areas, stream banks, ditches, and lake shores. Great blue lobelia is a native lobelia. Its leaves are alternate, lance-shaped, and 3 to 5 inches long with toothed margins and square stems. Flowers are blue, about 1 inch in length, 2-lipped and tubular, borne in terminal racemes in August and September. Leafy bracts are interspersed among the flowers. It's easy to grow in moist, acidic, humus-rich soils on sites having morning sun and afternoon shade. It needs uniform moisture for best performance. This plant grows up to 3 feet tall and 1 foot wide, and its habitat is swamps, stream banks, roadside ditches, and other wet areas. Bee balm The leaves are opposite, lance-shaped, toothed, and 3 to 6 inches long with square stems. The flower head consists of a cluster of two-lipped tubular flowers. Flower color ranges from maroon to pale pink, violet blue, or flaming scarlet. Flowering occurs in late summer and lasts 1 to 2 months. It prefers morning sun, afternoon shade, and moist, fertile soil. It's easy to plant. It's an easy plant to grow, but can look rough in the summer due to powdery mildew. It grows 3 to 5 feet high and 1 foot wide, and its habitat is moist mountain woods and bottomlands, stream banks, and seeps. Appalachian bergamot. The leaves are opposite, oblong, toothed along their margins, and 2 to 4 inches long with square stems. In summer, clusters of lavender tulip tubular flowers are borne in dense heads 1 to 2 inches across on the tips of stems. Each flower head is subtended by a whorl of pale pink leafy bracts. It prefers moist, well-drained soil and full sun to partial shade. Good air circulation between plants to discourage powdery mildew is important. The plants grow 2 to 4 feet tall, 1 foot wide, and spread. Its habitat is dry clearings, roadsides, and woodland edges. Spotted horse mint. This also has a square stem with opposite lance-shaped leaves, 1 to 3 inches long, that have toothed margins. From July to September, yellow two-lipped flowers with purple spots are borne in dense terminal spikes. It prefers full sun to partial shade and moist, well-drained sites. It will adapt to dry sites and poor soils. Deadheading after flowering will prevent it from spreading. Provide good air circulation between plants to minimize powdery mildew disease. It will grow 1 to 3 feet tall, 1 foot wide, and spread. Its habitat is dry sandy soils, floodplains, sand hills, rocky woodlands, and maritime forest. Smooth beard tongue. This has semi-evergreen erect and is clump forming. Basal leaves are oval with long petioles, while stem leaves are lance-shaped and sessile. Stem leaves are arranged in pairs on the stem, variable 3 to 6 inches long and 1/2 to 2 inches wide. White tulip tubular flowers 1 inch long in clusters at the tops of stems from May to July. This plant likes full sun to partial shade and moist, well-drained soils. Provide good air circulation between plants to minimize powdery mildew and disease. This plant will grow up to 3 feet tall, 1 foot wide, and spread. Its habitat is moist open woods and disturbed areas. Garden phlox or summer phlox. This has the stems are smooth with red streaks. The leaves are opposite, short-stalked, lance-shaped to oval, and 4 to 6 inches long, hairy underneath and minutely toothed along their margins. Flowers are bright pink to lavender, 1 inch across, tubular with 5 lobes, borne in clusters at the top of stems from July to September. It requires moist, loamy soil and sun to partial shade, at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. Provide good air circulation. This plant grows up to 4 feet tall and 1 foot wide. Its habitat is stream banks, rich forest, woodlands, and woodland borders. Creeping phlox. This is a mat-forming creeping plant with semi-evergreen foliage. The leaves are oblong to oval, up to 3 inches long. From July to September, clusters of fragrant lavender flowers, 3/4 of an inch long, are borne on tops of flowering stalks. Each flower consists of a short tube and 5 rounded spreading lobes. It's a ground cover in moist woodlands. It prefers partial shade and moist, well-drained soil. It grows 1/2 to 1 foot tall and spreading, and its habitat is rich hardwood forest, wooded areas, and stream banks. Moss phlox or moss pink. This is a spreading mat-forming ground cover. Leaves are opposite or in whorled bundles, 1/2 inch long, all shaped and pointed. In late March or early April, a profusion of fragrant tubular flowers, 3/4 inch across, rise above foliage. Flowers are violet, purple, pink, or occasionally white. Each flower consists of a short tube and 5 flat, petal-like lobes with distinct notches on the ends. This can be grown in rock gardens, dry beds, or banks. It adapts to hot, dry locations. It prefers morning sun and afternoon shade. Good drainage is essential for this plant. It gets 6 to 10 inches tall and spreading. Its habitat is dry, rocky slopes, primarily in the mountains. Solomon seal or smooth Solomon seal. Leaf stalks are zigzag and arching. Leaves are alternate, oval in shape, up to 4 inches long with parallel veins. In spring, small tubular greenish white flowers are borne in pairs at leaf axils on upper portions of stalks. Flowers hang down and are somewhat hidden by foliage. Flowers are followed by dark blue to black berries, approximately a ½ inch across. This is an understory plant in shaded moist woodlands or in wildlife gardens. It requires shade and consistent moisture. It grows 1 to 3 feet tall and 1 to 1.5 feet wide. Its habitat is rich, moist hardwood forest and thick calcareous hammocks. Black-eyed Susan. The leaves are alternate, oval to lance shaped, 2 to 7 inches long with bristle-like hairs on both surfaces that give them a sandpaper-like texture. From summer to early fall, daisy-like flower heads, 2 to 3 inches wide, are borne near tips of stems. Flower heads consist of showy golden yellow rays surrounding a raised central disc of dark brown. It prefers full sun and moderate moisture, may get leaf spot disease in hot, humid weather, and deadheading is helpful for this plant as well. It grows to 1 to 3 feet tall with a spread of 1 to 2 feet. Its habitat is open fields, prairies, plains, savannas, roadsides, and woodland edges. Wrinkle leaf goldenrod or rough stem goldenrod. This is the characteristics of this plant are tall, rough, hairy stems that arch outward from the base. Basal leaves are broad, raggedly toothed, rough textured, and have winged petioles. Upper leaves are lance-shaped, toothed, and less hairy. Leaves have a wrinkled appearance. In late summer, small light yellow flower heads are borne on upper portions of stems. This plant prefers full sun and moist, well-drained soils. Remove the spent flower clusters to encourage repeat bloom. This plant grows 2 to 6 feet tall. It's very, very variable. And its habitat is low woods, meadows, once cultivated fields, pine barrens, and bogs. This is also a very important habitat and pollinator plant in native ecosystems in the South. Not just this goldenrod, but any species of native goldenrod. New England aster. Asters are another very important specialist plant species for a lot of specialist bees and insects. Its characteristics are stout, erect stems that bear rough, hairy, sessile, lance-shaped leaves up to 5 inches long and 3/4 of an inch across. The stems branch near their top and produce terminal clusters of daisy-like flowers 1.5 inches wide from late summer to early fall. Color of the rays is variable, ranging from pink to purple, lavender, or white. The discs of the flower are yellow. It prefers moist, well-drained soil and full sun to partial shade. Prune it lightly before July to encourage more compact growth. It can get 6 to 8 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide. Its habitat is moist, open woodlands, meadows, mesic prairies, disturbed sites, and stream banks. Spotted wake robin or spotted trillium. This has 3 horizontal sessile leaves that are attached directly to the top of the stems 6 to 12 inches tall. Leaves are heart-shaped, 3 to 6 inches long, and 2 to 3 inches wide and mottled. From February to early April, a solitary erect flower is borne at the top of the stem above the leaves. The flower has 3 strap-like upright red maroon petals that are 1 to 2 inches long, subtended by 3 horizontal maroon sepals. It prefers moist, moist soil high in organic matter and partial shade, can grow 6 to 12 inches tall and 12 inches wide, and its habitat is moist, shaded, calcareous forest and bottomlands high in organic matter. All right, so we'll talk for just a second about a few native grasses. All of these are going to be bunch grasses. They're not going to be like your turf grass. We don't, all of our turf grasses are non-native and don't offer a lot to our landscape or ecosystems. So the first one is bushy blue stem. This is a narrow bunch grass with flattened blue-green linear leaf blades, up to 10 inches long and 1/4 to 1/2 inch wide. In late summer, dense silvery pink to white panicles are borne on terminals of the culms. After the first frost, foliage and panicles turn bronze and panicles may become panicles become fluffy. The culture is moist, low-lying areas. It prefers full sun and moist, wet soils. Provides good erosion control on slopes. Cut clumps back to the ground in late winter to make way for new spring growth. This grass gets 3 to 4 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide, and its habitat is peripheries of swamps, marshes, low pastures, and moist areas. We also have little blue stem, also known as bunch grass. This is a dense mounding plant with fine textured foliage and a distinctive blue-green color. The leaves are 6 to 10 inches long and 1/8 to 1/4 inch wide. In August, purplish bronze flowers appear on 3-inch long racemes borne singly or in pairs along a zigzag rachis. The foliage turns reddish brown in the fall. It prefers full sun to partial shade and moderately moist to dry, well-drained and fertile soil. It will not tolerate wet sites, but it will thrive on poor soils. It's 18 to 24 inches tall and 12 inches wide. And its habitat is woodland edges and open woodlands, slopes, prairies, meadows, pastures, rock outcrops, roadsides, and savannas. Purple lovegrass. This is a fine textured bunch grass with stiffly erect growth habit. The leaf blades are up to 12 inches long and 1/8 to 3/8 inches wide, tapering to a fine point. In August, reddish purple panicles up to 15 inches long and 20 inches across rise above the foliage. It likes moist, low-lying areas and prefers full to partial sun and well-drained soil. It tolerates poor and fertile soil. It provides good erosion control on slopes and grows 2 feet tall and up to 1 foot wide. Its habitat is disturbed sandy areas, upland prairies and savannas, limestone glades, and along railroads. Pink muley grass or Huron muley grass. This has medium green erect leaves, 2 feet long, that grow from a basal clump. The leaves are about 1/16 inch wide and either flat or rolled inward. In the fall, masses of airy pinkish flowers are formed in loosely branched inflorescences up to 12 inches long. It's best when these are planted in groups of 3 or more. They prefer full sun to partial shade and moist to dry, well-drained soil. Cut the plant back in late winter to make way for new spring growth. It's approximately 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide when it's fully grown. And the habitat is dry, exposed sites such as rocky clay soils or open woodlands and savannas in the Piedmont and coastal plain. All right, so we've talked about a number of native plant species that can be used throughout Georgia for different situations and different habitats. One thing I will mention about that before we move on is that there's a lot of debate as far as true natives and cultivars of those natives. There are some folks who say and who believe and have done some research that leads them to believe that the cultivars are equivalent. But keep in mind that when we create cultivars, a lot of times we're cloning genetics, so we're lessening the genetic diversity pool, but also we're usually breeding those for a trait we find desirable. but that's not necessarily beneficial to the insects and wildlife that use that plant. As such, personally, I always recommend trying to find the true natives and not a cultivar of them, to make sure that they're actually the plant that our native insect and wildlife species evolved with and adapted to over time. Because when we're breeding for traits that we prefer, they may have unintended consequences as far as their usefulness to our pollinators and wildlife. With that, we'll move on to our next topic, which is natural mulch and ground cover. So leaves and natural fallen debris provide free mulch that retains soil moisture, feeds the soil, and improves soil structure as it decomposes, offers naturally appropriate nutrition to native plants. I used to work with an arborist who would always say the best fertilizer for any tree was its own leaves. And likewise, he'd say the same thing about a lawn. The grass clippings were the best fertilizer for the grass. So, building that soil matter up, pretty much all of, no matter where you live in the state, your soils could be improved and your plants could be improved by building soil structure through organic matter. And the best way to do that is to leave the things that naturally fall. This also reduces erosion and the crusting of soils. So if you have bare soils, when the water hits that, the impact causes that soil to form a hard crust, so water doesn't infiltrate as well in the future. And also leaving the leaves and natural ground cover, natural fallen debris, offers habitat to pollinators and beneficial insects, as well as wildlife. So we have a number of species that use fallen leaves to either overwinter in or to finish their reproductive cycle in. So if you want to have pollinator and wildlife populations in your landscape, leaving the leaves is really important. Fireflies are just one of many of the insects that are dependent on fallen leaves in order to survive and reproduce. If you're not comfortable leaving the leaves as they fall, that's okay. Raking them into mulch rings around trees or raking them up and putting them into flower beds, but somewhere where you can leave them over winter and not disturb them too much. Some people even choose to rake them into piles at the edge of their property. But leaving some leaves for wildlife and beneficial insects and pollinators is really important. Establishing strong roots is also part of a low maintenance landscape. So first off, we want to make sure that we're planting what we plant correctly. This is going to vary some depending on what you're planting. So your planting strategy for a coneflower is going to be different than your planting strategy for a live oak. So if you have questions about that, UGA has some great resources. You can also just reach out to your local extension agent and they can give you advice to make sure that you're planting correctly. Most things are only going to be planted as deep as they are in the pot. There are a few plants you can plant a little deeper than that have adventitious roots, but most plants you're going to want it just as deep as it was in the pot. You're going to want good soil contact amongst the roots and room for the roots to spread out. You're also, if it's a tree, you're going to want to keep that top root flare exposed and not plant too deep. So making sure that you're using good planting practices is a great first step. Once your plants are established, you want to water deeply and infrequently, if at all. If you are going to water, you want to make sure that there hasn't been rainfall, usually in about a week to 10 days, and that you're definitely not putting more down than an inch total, including rainfall, in a week. Where I live on the coast, there's hardly a week goes by that we don't get many inches from rain. So, I don't ever water in my landscape. In fact, a lot of things still die from just being too wet. Watch for signs of drought stress before watering. So this can be things like, wilting. But keep in mind that with wilting, you can also have the same type of symptoms from plants that are staying too wet or are overwatered. So when in doubt, stick a finger in the soil and see if it's dry or if it's moist. But one of the advantages to having a low maintenance landscape and utilizing native plants is that once they're established, you shouldn't need to water them or do much for them. They're adapted to that environment, and they can usually handle the ups and downs and the roller coasters that nature throws at them. So another important thing is putting the right plant in the right place. So as we mentioned earlier, make sure that you plant for the size a plant will become and space appropriately. So, you know, don't think about planting it to look nice as the size it is now. Make sure that you give it adequate space from buildings, driveways, roads, other plants, so that when it reaches its mature size, it still has enough space, because that's one of the main keys for survival. Ideally, both aesthetically and for the health of the plant, you want to plant in groups of 3 or more if possible. We're finding that individual plants do better when they've got some kin folks nearby to help support them. Also follow the label for sun and moisture requirements. So most plants that you buy at a standard nursery are going to have a label on them. And most native plant nurseries either are going to have a label, or they're going to be super helpful in telling you what that plant needs and what their experiences are with it. So making sure that if it's a plant that needs full sun, that you're putting it in full sun, not somewhere shady. Or if it's one that needs dry soils, that you're not planting it in an area that doesn't drain well. Also, make sure you're selecting plants that are for this plant zone and this heat tolerance. So that can vary depending on where you live in the state. You know, the zone that I'm in, the USDA planting zone that I'm in here on the coast is very different than if you're in the mountains, but making sure that you're picking native plants that are appropriate for your plant zone, which with the natives, that becomes a little easier. All right. So when you're going through the certification metric for the Georgia Green Landscape Stewards Program, the checklist items that relate to this talk are to plant native plants adapted to your climate and natural pest, put the right plant in the right place, consider sun, soil moisture, salt tolerance, spacing, and temperature, plant in groups of 3, use natural mulch and ground cover, leaves, pine straw, and woody debris. Establish strong roots, plant correctly, use native plants, and water deeply and infrequently. If you have any questions specific to the Georgia Green Landscape Stewards Program, please reach out to us at georgiagreen@uga.edu. You can also visit our website in order to learn more about the program and to take part. That's site.extension.uga.edu/Georgia Green. If you have questions about your landscape and issues in your landscape, please reach out to your local extension office. We're very easy to find, and there is someone that is serving every county in the state of Georgia. So you have a local person who is going to be the most knowledgeable about your local issues in your local area. Also, I wanted to give a special thanks to Dr. Bodie Panensi for the species slides in this talk.